is in between each other or whatever is a half step. If you go in between the sharps and you see there's a letter there, that's a half step in between. Half step up, half step down from a sharp. Remember G sharp? Remember G sharp? That was such a great note. Well, it is a great note in our world. G sharp. It's such a great sharp. It's such a great sharp. Because what it is a sharp in the middle of the threes. It's a zoning point that we can find where we are on the keyboard right away by finding G sharp. It was the first note we ever learned in Studio E KEYSongs in semester 1. When we were learning just one note at a time. But now we're saying, hey, can you go from that G sharp to another note, any note on the keyboard, and tell me what interval you just went? How far did you go from G sharp? You started at G sharp, you found G sharp, but you went somewhere. What was it? If you went to B above it, how far do you go? You just happen to have gone a boot M3. How many times have we talked about boot M3s? Boot M3 is not a 3. Boot M3 is in blues town. Boot blues. It is a M, a minor third. It's not a full third. It's a minor third. Why is a full third? A full third is a whole step and whole step. A boot M3 is a whole step and a half step. A whole step and half step. Get you a boot M3. But guess what? I just went from G sharp to B and went a boot M3. I could just go to you M3 above G sharp and you'll know it's B because it is an M3. It is a whole step, which would be from G sharp to A sharp because there's a note in between. That's what whole step is. And then another half step because it's a whole step plus a half step. It's a boot M3. It's an M3, which equals a whole step plus a half step. Not a whole step plus a whole step plus a whole step plus a whole step equals a 3. But a whole step plus a half step equals an M3. A completely distinctive 3 than 3. 3 is 3. M3 is M3. It's a different thing than 3. You don't have the same place on the keyboard if you're talking about an M3 than if you were talking about a 3. Okay, prove it. A 3 from G sharp is C. Go to A sharp, which is whole step. One note in between is whole step, remember? Because every you go 2 halves, you got to have one note in between. Right? Half down, half up, and half up from there makes one note in between. Half up from here and half up from here makes one note in between. All right, anyway, so what is a full whole step and whole step from G sharp? It's C. That's the 3 or the third interval away from gong. 3. Oh, 3. The full 3 versus the M3. This is not. The M3 is different than the 3. So it actually touches each other because it is one half step away because you have already gone one half step beyond a whole step to get to the M3. Well, if you go a whole step, one more half step to make a whole step, you get a touching note to 3 is M3. They go right together. And the cool thing is it's a touching note to 2. So it fills the gap in between 2 and 3. M3 is a buddy of 2 and 3 because it fills the gap in between. Look at this. Here was that M3 from G sharp to B, G sharp to B, G sharp to B. Do you remember this? G sharp, our favorite note, we just found it, and then we went to B above it. We made what it's called M3. And then I said, well, if you want to go a full 3, 2 notes in between, you have to go G sharp to A sharp and A sharp to C, which would be a full 3. And that's what it sounds like, and that's what it sounds like. And that's what it sounds like, and that's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like, and that's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like, that's what it sounds like. 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 That's what it sounds like is a major C. Or 3. Just 3. That's what it sounds like is an M3. Minor 3. M3, 3, M3, 3, M3, M3. From G sharp up is a B for an M3. As I say right here, correct. It has 2 notes in between. It is a great interval. It is touching the 3. So if you ever find an M3, you know you can touch right next to it and go a little bit further, one half step further away from whatever you're beginning on, which is your root or unison or 1. Then we have our 2. The 2. Then we have the M3 touching the 2, and then the 3 touching the M3. Touch, touch, right here. 2, though, does not touch. That's touching the 2, and you're the 1. That's confusing because there's a note in between. Because there is no half. And the thing that starts the whole thing off is a 1. And you got to go somewhere, but you don't go to touching it. You make that skip. And it's not identified in the distance between 1 and 8. The cool thing about 1 and 8, here it is. The root starts everything. It is the beginning of the fun. It starts your street. It starts your interval. It is the note that you first started learning. When you were looking at that first note, where is G sharp? We were thinking G sharp was the 1. Because that's all we were looking for. We were looking for G sharp, middle of 3s. It is the first note we're looking for because it was the root. So the cool thing is this note, when I say goes the distance to this note, going right, but it actually goes higher. Okay. It is going the distance of an M3 away from the 1, which we've identified as being G sharp. So, when we're going to an M3 away from this, we're going an interval. Ding! That's what the whole second semester's been about. Intervals. 2 notes at one time. The cool thing is that these 2 notes are pictures. And you get to know it real good, and you think, oh, I know the M3 from G sharp is B because I've seen it before and felt the distance in between the 2 before. Feeling the distance in between 2 fingers has been an issue that intervals have brought into our brains this semester. It's a definite kind of, how can I say, echo in the room? So, from this root right here, we're going to go somewhere in an interval. But we're going to feel the distance with our fingers. Instead of always having your your pointer finger, your second finger actually, as your focus in your brain, when you play keyboard, you really need to have your thumb as your main focus. Because your thumb can easily not do any work. The keyboard sitting in front of you, if you're looking at it, where is the center of the keyboard? Well, everyone will look around, E, F, which is the true center, in between E, F, E, F, whatever one will go C or something like that below the skis. But anyways, no, the true center of the keyboard is this way. It's horizontal. That's where the center of the keyboard is. The center of the keyboard is where they're touching the sharp raised notes, those 3-dimensional beautiful notes that are actually higher than the letters. They're actually sharps, and they have something glued on top of the flatness of the letters in order to raise them about 3/4 inch in a full-size keyboard. Even though this is a mini keyboard, they really look great together because you can show how huge it is to how little tiny the 3/4 is. However, the great thing about that is, I think we're in tune with the background tape tonight. Anyway, so the great thing is, when you're playing, you're looking for a feeling of distance between your fingers. And the interesting point is, if we're in the center of the keyboard, remember looking horizontally, if we're in the center, we're touching those sharps. We're brushing against them. At the same time, we're, of course, touching the letters, which are below. But we are not hanging in the alley. This is the street, you all. This is the street of houses right here. Not up here, not down here. Right here. So where's the center of the street? Right in the center here. That's where the center of the street is. Where does your thumb belong? In the center of the street, not hanging down in the alley down here. No, in the center of the street. So we can feel the touching distances sometimes that the 3s and the 2s create. The 3s and the 2s meaning the sharps. I'm trying to show people how we think in letters. I'm trying to think that we're thinking in letters. We are not right now, at least for 5 years in Studio E KEYSongs, thinking of dots on a staff. We are not thinking about that. I don't know why people think that. This is the way that we should think, because this has to be transformed into not only an interval, minor third, but also a letter. And I'd rather you concentrate on the letter. Where is it? Quickly, please. And also the interval number of where you are away from one, rather than the dot of where it's hanging on the spaces or the lines of a staff, which is great in 5 years, because in 5 years these dots can show where you are. So it could be cool. I'm not saying it's not cool, but it's not now. No. Later. Letters or that. Not thinking dots, I'm thinking E's and G's. Thinking two things, E's or G's. We're thinking letters, we're not thinking dots. Forget the dots. Not for 5 years. We're only going to try to think letters. What number is a letter, not where it is on a space or a line. What number it is in relation to an interval away from one. We're going to make streets in towns. They're going to have 12 different ones because there's 12 different possible letters. There's a lot of 12s in music. There's 12 possible intervals. There's 12 possible letters. 12. This is 12-bar blues. That's a blues street. Anyway, so from here, I'm going to show you more. So, we've got this distance in between one in our fingers. And it does not always seem possible, but it does, remember, in your brain when you place a distance between your thumb and another finger. Now on the street, touching with our thumbs. And by doing that, a magic thing happens. Your hand just kind of naturally slants, like, hey, gotcha. And it naturally slants. And when it naturally slants, it forms an interval between your first and second fingers. This interval right here gets shorter. Notice that the special effects just got shorter. Or longer, depending on how wide your fingers are spread between your first and second fingers. If your thumb is playing, I got a left hand bass out here. If your thumb is playing an interval, a 1 with your thumb, and now you're going to be going left now, the first finger is your second, and since your thumb is way onto the keys, you'd be surprised how many keys you can go to get to the tip of your second finger. In fact, if I just take this exact distance here and I just go right to the keys behind me and I'm not even looking at them, I'll tell you the interval once I hit it, because I know all my intervals. That's a comfortable. I'm not even looking at it. I'm trying to feel what would be like a comfortable. I'm crawling chromatically, chromatic city-wise to see. I think that's a very comfortable interval. That's a sixth. I'm going to 6, the distance from 1 to 6 from just my first to my second finger. I'm going to the 6th house on the street from just my first to my second finger. And by the way, back there are full-size keys. Remember, full-size keys back here. It's not the camera that's doing this. These are really mini keys. It's a cool kind of thing to have on your desk, a little mini keyboard like this. Anyways, this distance between your first and second finger, like so if you're taking your left hand right here, and you're going down here from your first, I'll move the 1 a little bit over. Whoa! Going down this way, this I can go to 6th, down. Imagine if I point my other finger out, which is my third finger, which is longer. You can see the longer distance here even than my second finger can reach. I bet I can go further than a 6 just by reaching, just by looking, just by looking at this. Automatic 7th. Not a major 7, but a 7. Automatic from my first to my third fingers in my thumb. It must work in my right hand too. It does. Just that these are mini keys, so they're kind of, deceiving, because this is a full-size key, so you can imagine the distance of fatness in between 1 and 7 might be a little easier on this keyboard since it's just miniaturized versions of this. Although it won't hurt you to play it. It's really cool to play. In fact, it gets your eyes going. Oh, I got to concentrate on the 3s and the 2s in order to see exactly where I am because I can't feel totally of the full sizeness that I've used to. I have to think about sight and letters. Wow, that's great stuff. That's the kind of stuff I try to do in Studio E KEYSongs, is teach how to think in these simple, basic thoughts, like having your thumb on the keyboard. Or, I'll give you another one, going in interval. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Can you remember that between my first and my second finger, whether I'm going right or left hand? Here's my right hand. Can you remember that that interval felt that way, as well as sounded that way, as well as looked that way? Yes, you can. Your brain will learn it quick, faster than you think. So going all the way back to that nice, simple, oh, we found G sharp, then we found B above it, that's a little minor third. That is squishing your first and second fingers closer together than that full distance of a sixth or maybe a fifth that you can get wherever, how long your fingers are or whatever. The point is this look right here can be squished in either hand and shrunken and felt and exactly memorize what it feels like to go that interval of only an M3. Only a whole step plus a half step. Just that short little distance there. I went that distance so easily because I played that distance so easily because I know how to feel a M3 or feel a third in between my two fingers. And what's the first finger? It's 1. It has to be 1. It is the beginning of everything. If you're going in M3, it's shorter than going to 3. Flashlight. I'll leave it here. Just remember it's here. All right, so here. 1. Boot M3. Trying to make the distinction by making a boot, but at the same time, it's just a little number with a little M in front of it. Such a cool thing. It's different than a 3. It touches a 3, but it's different. It feels different in the distance of your fingers. If you don't even look, but you learn how to crawl your thumb, just one note at a time, chromatically, it's the beginning of being able to do that with another note attached to it. Just like in first semester, we were like, oh, let's feel what it likes to touch every single note with your thumb only. I'm only playing my thumb now, just crawling up and down the keys. I'm feeling, oh, I'm in the middle of the 3s. Now I'm on B, C, B, C, because I'm right above the 3s. And I must be to C sharp, to D sharp. I'm trying to think in my mind, what letter am I? E, F, oh, F sharp. Going backwards, F, E, D sharp, D, C sharp, C, B. I'm thinking, oh, I'm starting into the 3s now, the sharps. A sharp, A, G sharp, G, F sharp, F, E, D sharp. I'm crawling right back and forth. I'm thinking because I am a thumb experimenting what it feels like to feel those little spaces of B, C, B, C, E, F, F. And I can even hop now with my thumb, and I can feel those spaces of B, C, B, C because I can feel exactly, because I'm touching in between, in the middle of the street, and I can see those spaces of E, F, E, F, B, C, B, C, E, F, E, F, B, C, B, C. I can see those, and I can feel those, and I can feel the distance with my thumb. I can feel it. This is one note at a time. And so now that I'm back and forth, I can up and down, wherever I have to go to touch every note, I can add this finger to it and make an interval off of it. And learn how to slide with the next finger too at the same time that I'm sliding with the first finger. This would be like this. I've learned how to not only that slide with the thumb, now I've learned how to slide with the second finger in a interval position between my first finger and my thumb. This is an interval. And now I'm sliding that interval chromatic city-wise. 1 becomes a half step higher, a half step higher, a half step higher. 1 moves. And then above that is an interval. At this point, I know that I'm playing a fifth above it, which is even further much further than a third. And it's not even as close as a M3 would be to that 1. But there's 12 different ones, remember, so we have to learn how to crawl with your thumb, because if your thumb's going to be 1 in each hand, you have to look how I'm... Now look at this, if you have 2 keyboards and you're doing thumbing, and you're thumbing Chromatic City, what if you move the interval between your hands? What if you said, I'm going to play the same note and same note, here's an F and F, and I'm going to slide it, chromatically like this. One note, just my thumb in each hand. But what if I separated that letter and I made it an interval from this one that was different, separate from the hands? I separated my hands in interval. Wait. Instead of it being an eighth away from the 1, which it could be, I'm going to separate that less than an eighth. I'm going to go down maybe to a fifth away from my hands. When I start on an E down here with my thumb, I'm going to have to find 5 notes away from me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's B. So here I'm going to start on B on my right guitar hand, but E on my left hand. And then I'm going to slide chromatically. Well, all of a sudden it's different because I am feeling that, oh, I'm lost. I don't have the same feel in each hand. I have to separate my feel to know whether I'm in between the 3s or the 2s. It's separately in 2 separate hands. But that's what you have to do. So that's a great thing to practice. By just taking your thumb and putting it on the keyboard and sliding it back and forth on the same note. And picking a different note in the left hand as the right hand, separating your hand by an interval. In this case, I was just playing a third, but I was learning how to slide, still feel the slide of whether I'm in between B, C, B, C, E, F, E, F, or I have to get just 2 sharps to go to, and then I will be into E, F, E, F, then I'll go to 3 sharps to go to, just to be able to feel it with your thumb in both hands separately. What if they were occurring at different times? If they're occurring at the same time, you're playing the same letter an octave apart. Okay, that's great. But what if you intervalized and you went shorter than an octave in between your 2 hands, between your 2 thumbs, and you shortened it to like a fifth or something like that, or a third? It'll feel different. If you're just sliding your thumb back and forth, it'll feel different because you won't be going B, C, B, C at the same time. Because if you're third apart, you'll be going G, G sharp. At the same time, you're going B, C, B, C. So you'll be going letter to letter in one hand, and you'll be going letter to sharp in the other. Another thing, you'll be letter to letter in one hand, and you'll be going sharp to letter in the other. And then sometimes you'll be on 3s, in the middle of the 3s, and in one hand, and on the right hand of the guitar in this side, and in the middle of the 2s in the other, but you have to still feel that you not miss any note. But it's it sounds so cool to have your interval, to have your keyboard hands separated by an interval. And you know what? It begins a separation that you need to do anyways, because you need to separate between the guitar player and the bass player. What a great way to do it from the very beginning, by making them intervally apart. So they don't have the same note that they're playing. So they're not boring following each other. The left hand is playing the same note that the thumb and the right hand playing. No. What if they started playing intervals apart? It's a minor third, or so I'm playing G sharp in my thumb in the right hand to B, my second finger, and I'm feeling the interval and that distance, what it feels like to go from my thumb to my second finger, and I'm then sliding it back and forth like I learned already with one finger. I'm sliding it with 2 fingers. Chromatic City. I'm touching every single possible way to touch. And I'm feeling whether I'm going from letter to sharp, or sharp to letter, flat across, or whether I have to go all the way up to sharp. And then everyone says, well, the new keyboards are all going to be a flat key. They're all going to be a flat plane. They'll never be. Because it's too much fun going up and going down, going from down to up, going under, going around. That raisedness that it puts your fingers, actually lifts your fingers up off the plane of the letters, and it makes it so cool. The sharps are so cool. The sharps are just as important as the letters. So much important that if you don't forget that hashtag sign to make this sharp, because this is a cool letter. You can't forget it. It's so critical. it makes up. That's why we learn all these new zoning laws we were talking about. When the people moved out from Chromatic City, not only did you have the sharps and letters, but you had spaces in between.
All right, so
we're talking about that next time.
Hold on a second. Hold on.